Okay, so I hope you did the exercise. I will not implement it right here at this time, but I will show you how we can pass data from one screen to another. So basically passing the name from the first screen to the second screen. And now let's go ahead and just do that. Therefore, inside of our second screen, we're just gonna say, hey, whenever you want to call me, you need to pass me a name of type string. That's it. Well, obviously there's more to it, but I'm going to not say welcome, but I'm gonna say welcome name here instead inside of the second screen. And then I will also, for the preview, just pass a name. I'm just gonna say Dennis, for example, as the name, and the navigation function will still be this navigate to first screen. So now if we go back to our first screen and we want to navigate to the second screen, we need to pass the name. So we need to pass this name here. So that means that here in this onClick, we are going to pass name.value. So we're basically passing the value of that remember name variable. And now this navigation to second screen will also get a string from us. So we're saying whenever we want to navigate to the second screen, we need to pass a string to it. And that will basically allow us to pass that string in there. Or basically say, hey, we pass a string as a parameter to the navigate to second screen. Now that is unfortunately not all. We need to add one more thing, and that will be that when we are in the main activity my app, we need to add details about it. So here we're going to also pass name, and you see the first screen, it string. So we do get a string here, and we can give this string a name. I'm gonna call this name or the string name. So now I can use this here. So /name. So by this, we're passing the name to the second screen when we are navigating to it. So the root now is not just the name of the second screen, so to speak. So this composable root, but we're also using the passing the property of name. Now the second screen needs to be accepting this name, so we need to pass it. And how we do that is, or we need to accept it. How we do that is by using slash and then in curly brackets the variables that we want to use. So in my case, the name. So our second screen now needs the name here as well, like so. Now what is this name? Well, the name we're going to get from it. So from this navstack entry, basically we can create a new variable that will take it and its arguments, which can be null, and will get its string by the key, and the key that we are using is name. And if for some reason there's nothing in there, we're going to use the default of no name. So that means that if in the first screen we didn't enter anything in here into this text field, and we go to the second screen, it will say welcome no name. So this is basically the structure. It is still a little complicated, I believe. I hope that they will make the code easier in the future, but for now this is what we go with. Now, if we want to send back the name from the second screen again to the first screen, we can pass the name here. So here inside of second screen, we can pass that name back. But that only works if we pass the name or prepare the name to be a string in here as well. So basically we're modifying our function that initially didn't get any value. It didn't need any parameters to be executed, but now it does need that. Okay, So let's run this and test our application and then go through the flow once again, because we made a bunch of changes and it might be a little confusing. So let's really make sure that we get that. And there will be another exercise for you where you will practice this again, and then it will make more sense, because sometimes it's just, you just have to follow the flow, right? It's not easy, but once you get it, it's fine. All right, so now let's test this and let's see if we enter Dennis and we go to the second screen. We see this is the second screen and it says, welcome Dennis. Okay, so now navigation works. We also saw how we can send data from one screen to another. And let's go over the flow once again. So we have this My App, which basically takes care of our navigation, and it has our different screens in it by saying composable and then having the roots, and the roots will then take care of displaying the right screen. We're saying that we need a nav controller, which is a stateful nav controller. Then we need to set up the nav host, which basically hosts all the navigation. And we pass the navigation controller and we have a start destination. So we just say, hey, first screen is the start destination. So what is first screen? Well, first screen is not our first screen per se, but it's just this name here. So we need to set a composable and then set the root. So we're saying the root first screen is the start destination. So what comes in here is what matters after, because we're saying basically, okay, well, inside of the root first screen, it would make sense to use our first screen composable, which we now do. Okay, so we do use this first screen now. Now you see, once we create this first screen, and we want to move over to the nav controller, we are also going to get the name. That will then send us to the second screen with the name. And in order to send it over, we use / and then the name or the parameter that we want to pass. So where do we get this name from? Well, if we look at our first screen here, you see we get it from here. We're basically saying, hey, use this string here whenever you navigate to the second screen. Now the name here, just remember, is the one that we are using as the value that we pass over to the second screen once we actually do the execution in our code. Okay, so that's where we are sending over our name field that is inside of this text field that we enter into outline text field. We take that name and we send it over to the second screen. Now the second screen needs to be able to receive the name, which is why we have this parameter here, which says I want to be able to receive this name. So that's what happens here. Now this allows us to move a variable from one screen to another. Now in the second screen, we say, okay, second screen will get a name parameter included as information once it is called. So now this name variable that we're getting is going to be inside of the nav back stack entry. So we're basically getting that name. So we're basically creating a new variable that reads through the arguments. So you can pass multiple arguments and they will be inside of this id nav back stack entry. And we are checking the argument by its name, and the name that we selected and used was name. Okay, so the key basically that we have passed. Now where do we pass that key? Well, we pass it here. And then we say if there's nothing behind this key name, then just use the default of no name. And then we set up the second screen inside of our composable root, basically saying, hey, second screen, once you will be loaded, you will get a name, and then we will pass that name as we just gotten it out of our arguments. We are going to give you that, and then we're also giving you the navigation capability of navigating back to the first screen. So that's what this navigation line does. But basically here we're passing the actual name to the second screen, which then takes that name and then can display it inside of its screen. Okay, so here, for example, in the text, welcome. Now in our case, we did that with a string variable, but you can do that with all kinds of other variable types as well. So that's it for this video. And I would say we're pretty much ready to go over to the next application, or our recipe application, and add a detail screen there and navigate to that screen. So I would say see you in the next video. And by the way, also there will be an exercise for you to play around with navigation, because I believe this is more learned by actually applying than learned through watching a video. All right. So see you. Good luck with the exercise and see you in the next one.